They say you think better on your feet, so I'm going to go ahead and sit down here. Some of you will get that later. It'll be all right. Thank you for letting me be here today. Wow. I talked to Paul earlier, and he has me scheduled in a couple of weeks. He's away for vacation or a conference, and July 1st, he called me on Wednesday and said, "Man, I'm sorry." He said, "I'm kind of in a bind here," and told me that he had the shingles virus. Does anybody know what? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then he texted me pictures of himself yesterday.
Yeah.
And I said, he said, just so you know, I'm not faking. I said, "It looks more like you lost a fight with Sherry because it's on his face." And so really, I think you need to pray for your pastor and show him some love this week and just really hold him up before the throne. Because I've never had shingles, thank God, but they say they're some of the most painful, especially in this area that's down toward his eyes. So he needs a lot of prayers. Happy Father's Day, by the way. Amen. I'm glad you're here. I'll tell you what, can I get a couple of young guys to help me here? I got some notes if you're interested in following along. Young guys like Fitz and Casey, okay, that'd be great. Anybody interested? Just one to anybody that wants one. And yeah. Talking today about a degree in fatherhood. And I'll try to make sure you get the notes. If you don't, see me after the service and we'll see if we can come up with something to fill in those blanks for you. How many remember butterfly kisses? Yeah, y'all as old as I am. Yeah. Butterfly kisses. Bob Carlisle, one of my favorites. I love to hear Bob Carlisle sing. And he did this song, it's probably been 25 years ago at least, would be my guess, maybe 20 years ago. Matter of fact, I attempted to sing this particular song at your pastor and his wife's wedding. And Bob Carlisle goes really high. And so please, whatever you do, don't ever watch their wedding video, because I'm on there stroking like a sick calf in a hailstorm, my dad used to say. In that song, he depicts stages in the lives of his family, especially his daughter. And he starts out she's just a child, and then she's 16, and then she's getting married. And if you can listen to that song as a daddy who has a daughter and not cry, you're not a real man. I mean, real men don't cry, right? I'm sorry. If you listen to that song and you have a daughter, it'll cause you to really wake up. But he says something in that song that catches me every time I hear it, and I still listen to it. He says, "With all that I've done wrong, I must have done something right to deserve her love every morning and butterfly kisses at night." Dads, I don't want to be preachy. I don't want to come down hard on you. I want to treat you as kindly as Paul did the mothers on Mother's Day. I wish I could. But we got to do something right. We got to stop making excuses for not doing it right and start learning what it takes. I think one of the greatest problems that our society faces is not delinquent kids. I think it's delinquent dads. It's dads who are either gone or are still there but don't show up. They've checked out. And dads, we have What an awesome, awesome responsibility and privilege it is for God to entrust under our care any other life. It's an amazing thing. I am happily the father of 4, and talking about stages, and life changes. At one point in my house, we had 4 kids under the age of 12, which means at one stage in my house, we had 4 kids who were teenagers or young adults. Those are stages. Today, my wife and I pretty much are empty nesters. My daughter lives with us because she went through a divorce, but she's at home, but it's a totally different relationship now. It's the same level parenting rather than me trying to talk into her life. So I don't know that I'm qualified to speak to you this morning. I will say, and I prayed on the way here, I don't know who else to relate to. I only know me and my family as far as daddy and kids are concerned. But I prayed on the way here, God, whatever you do, don't let me make this about me. Let me make it about you and about your dads who will be in that congregation. But I do want to say I'm very happy this morning. I'm humble, but happy that this morning, of my 4 children, 3 of them are right now actively engaged in leading worship or singing in church. And my oldest son, who you know, Brad, got a callback audition for the television show The Voice. And so he's actually, I'm so excited for him. And pray for him. I'm praying that he'll lose. If he's not going to use that platform that God gives him to glorify God, I don't want him being in that position. But I'm praying that he'll win because I believe and I have confidence in Brad that he'll use that platform to bring glory to the Lord. And so that's important. So from that perspective, I want to just speak to you from father to father this morning. The rest of you can listen in if you would. But studies have shown there's a father's absence from the home creates a climate for his children to have, and this is from Leonard Lessard's Strong Men, Weak Men book. These are things that happen when dads are not involved like we should be. A higher delinquency rate in the lives of their children, more premarital pregnancies of their daughters or their sons who impregnate young girls, lower school performance, greater illegal drug use, and greater tendency toward crime. And too many times, we have relegated the responsibility of fatherhood over to mothers. And I just want to give kudos out to you this morning. If you're a single mom, I don't even know you, but you're one of the strongest people that I will soon know. Because I've watched single moms try to be mom and dad, and it's not supposed to be that way biblically. It's not supposed to be that way in a practical world, but I've watched moms time and time again step up to the plate and do an incredible job of parenting their children without the other half of their team. And dads, first of all, if you're here and you're a father who has walked away from your family, I don't want you to hate me. I don't want you to hate God. But you're a goofball, man. Okay? You should change. Now, I'm not saying run right back to the family this afternoon. They may lock the door. What I'm saying is you need to start becoming aware of your responsibility to be involved in those kinds of relationships with your children. And I've known a lot of parents who couldn't get along. But don't leave the kids out. Man, you got to keep... I'm not saying you have to stay together. I don't believe that. I believe there are times when I've sat across the desk from couples in counseling, and the best thing that I could recommend was, you This is never going to get fixed. This is never going to change unless you are willing to drastically change. And right now I don't see either of you being that. But for God's sake and for the kids' sake, work something out. Whether you stay together or don't stay together, you got to work something out. A lot of times, here he goes. But a lot of times, and I've struggled with this in counseling couples. They'll say, but I made a vow. I made a vow to love, honor, and to cherish till death separates us. We made a vow. So we can't get a divorce until, death. Let me tell you, we don't want to break our vow. You broke your vow the minute you stopped loving, honoring, and cherishing. You already broke the vow. Fix it. Don't continue living with that part of your life broken. Well, that killed the meeting graveyard dead, didn't it? Fix it. Change it. Start showing that love and that honor and that respect to one another so the children can see it modeled before them. Proverbs 30 verse 11 says, there is a generation that curses its father and does not bless its mother. We live in that kind of a generation where they curse their father and they do not bless their mother. But I'm asking us dads this morning on Dad's Day, have we given them a reason to curse us? Is there a reason? Every one of us as dads is enrolled in an on-the-job training school. We're earning a degree in fatherhood. And whether we pass or fail is not going to be immediately visible, but it'll show up in the future through the lives of our children. I had one friend who took so much criticism from his own family for the things he allowed his children to do that they thought, oh, that's taboo. That you shouldn't allow your kids to be doing that. His favorite saying was, well, let me do this parenting thing and the proof is in the pudding. And that's so true. We don't know how it's working out right now while they're still this age. But we got to do something right so that when they get this age or this big, they do right things. They have a foundation for their life. Consequently, that father's son is now in ministry and leading a strong youth group. And those who were criticizing him, unfortunately, their children aren't even in church. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. But he caught something that apparently those others didn't, and that is, I got to work through this. I got to know what I'm doing here. I got to walk with God and teach my son to walk with God. I don't presume to be a good father. I don't know how guys like Gary Smalling or Dr. James Dobson, they write books on parenting, and I start reading them, and I start saying, oh, God, I have failed so bad. I mean, these guys are so smart, and I'm just not very intelligent at all when it comes to parenting. But let me tell you something. There may be times, dads, when you feel a bit overwhelmed, but there's no place to quit. Keep trying. Keep moving forward. Keep learning new lessons. By the time you're my age and you get to be a grandparent, you have all the answers. Yeah, you can laugh at that. That was a joke. But at that point, you don't have to have the answers because you can send them home tonight. You know what I'm saying? A friend of mine said his favorite sight was to see those grandkids coming up the driveway in the van. His second favorite sight was to see the taillights as they were leaving, going down the road. Let me just give you a couple principles this morning, dads. Write these down, or you've got them in your notes. Learn to laugh uncontrollably. Sometimes, dads, you need to laugh with your kids at you. Any dads ever do anything stupid? None. Look at that. What an awesome crowd. Oh, three willing participants. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? Our kids know us. They know the times. You walk out into public with 2 different socks under your sandals. They know. They know when you do stupid stuff. And the worst thing in the world is to pretend like you don't. Learn to laugh at yourself. Make sure your kids know that they can laugh about your faults and your quirks. If you don't let them do it with you, they'll do it behind your back. They're going to laugh at you. Lighten up. Learn to share even with your kids some of those goofy things that you've done. What it's doing is letting them know that you're not perfect and you cannot expect perfection out of them, but you're willing to laugh at your shortcomings so you can have the opportunity to laugh with them at theirs. Laugh at yourself. Number 2, laugh with your children. Don't laugh at them, laugh with them. Your kids. Am I allowed to use the word stupid here?
Yes.
Is this church okay with stupid?
Yes.
Huh, all right. I got shushed one time when, I said the word stupid and a little kid went, he said a dirty word. Your kid's going to do ridiculous things at times. Include them in the laughter about those things. Let them fail from time to time. Now, don't encourage it, but when it happens, learn to laugh with them through their failures. But let me just give you this aside. Don't compare your children to one another. They'll all be different. No 2 children are the same. I had some friends, they had 2 girls, Adrian and Ashley, and when I first met those girls, I couldn't tell them apart. After I'd been around them for about a year, I couldn't imagine that I ever got them confused. They were so, even though they looked quite a bit alike, they were so totally different in disposition and things that they enjoyed. One was a tomboy. She could beat up any guy in the church. And then the other one, she could read faster than the pastor or anybody else in the church. She was just a very studious person. And I never had a problem telling them apart once I got to know them. They were just that different. Some of your children, dads, are not going to make straight A's. And stop pretending like you did. I always love that when parents look at their child's report card and say, "What is this, a C?" Like you didn't get one. Especially you dads, I know. I didn't get a lot of them. I wasn't that good. No, I'm just kidding. Some of your children will try really hard to make a B. Does that mean that one's better than the other? Well, maybe better at academics, but I have one son. He scored so low on his SAT that when I told his high school basketball coach what his score was, he fell in the bleachers laughing. He could not test. Didn't like school, couldn't listen and receive, and he always had to be preoccupied with something. You say, man, what a loser. What's he doing now? Well, now he's a civil engineer. Yeah, So he's doing okay. He landed on his feet without the SAT scores because he doesn't know how to take tests. Some of your kids, Dad, as much as you hate this, will never be able to catch a football. Never be able to throw a fastball. Never be able to dribble a basketball. It's going to happen. I like to say it this way. Some of your kids will never run fast. But some of your kids will never read fast. But they're still your kids. Don't compare them. Let them be who they are. As a parent, we create sibling rivalry. We create problems in our family that cause problems throughout the years of our child's life because we are unwilling to accept one child's giftedness in an area, but not another child's giftedness in an area. Some may be artistic, some may be athletic, some may be academic. They're strong points. We used to sit in the parking lot with my 4 kids. We were going into an amusement park for the day. It was a small amusement park called Santa Claus Land. Anybody ever hear of Santa Claus Land? We were going to Santa Claus Land. So we sat in the parking lot, and we know our kids. So before we get out of the car, we have a conversation. So God, we're going to pray together before we go in here that God will give us a good day. But there's some things we need to address. Okay? Brad, don't be a pest. Okay? Because Brad had a tendency to want to tease the younger kids. Bethany, it's my daughter. Don't be a boss. Because she wanted to be Mom Junior. Brian, don't be an idiot. Is that okay word? I said it here one time. My wife, last night I was reading this to her because I just added it. And she said, you can't say idiot in church. And then she said, oh, you did one time. And somebody up there said, yeah, I can relate to that. Brian, and of those of you who would know Brian, if you knew him, you'd say, yep, that's... Ben, my baby boy, don't be a powder. If Ben didn't get his way, one of those kind of kids. And then we prayed about it, and we went in, and we had a good day, and all we had to do throughout the day, when Brad would get a little pesky, he'd say, Brad, no, remember we're not going to pest. Oh, yeah. And we had a good day. Learn to identify your... Listen, I can't think of anything more tragic than living in the house with your children and not knowing them. Not knowing what they like, not knowing what they dislike, not knowing the things that they're good at, the things that they're bad at. Lighten up, Dad. Learn to laugh. Number 2, learn to love unconditionally. This is a tough one. Love them enough to keep them from failure. Okay? I'm not saying don't take their failures seriously when I say laugh. No, if they fail, correct it. Point it out. But make sure the discipline rises to the level of the crime. I've seen parents spank their children because they spilled the milk. But I've seen those same parents talk to their children when they caught them telling a lie. Now let me ask you something. Which do you think has more eternal bearing on that child's soul, lying or spilling the milk? Now you can answer.
Lying.
Yeah, there you go. And yet, because it was an inconvenience to me, when they spilled that milk and I had to clean it up, they got a spanking for that, or they got a timeout for that. I don't even know what a timeout is. I mean, when I was a kid, timeout could only be used in the middle of like a basketball game. You couldn't even call timeout when you were playing tag. That was not fair. Somebody about to tag you. Well, timeout. No, you can't timeout. That's because I'm old. Okay, sorry. I know parenting has changed, but kids haven't changed. They still need some expectations. But don't set those expectations too high, because then they always feel like failures. Always. Love them enough to keep on loving them in spite of their failures. This is what's amazing to me. God does this. God is the only Father that I know who's really good at loving unconditionally. He loves us with no ifs. Isn't that awesome? I was sitting across the table from a friend of mine a number of years ago. And he was wayward, man. He was not on course. He was tracking off course spiritually. And I sat across the Waffle House table from him. And I said, man, I know you're not doing right, and you know you're not doing right. He agreed. But he didn't care. You know, it was kind of nonchalant. Yeah, I know. I said, can I tell you something? I could have preached at him, told him all the things he was doing wrong. He already admitted that. He knew them. I said, I'm going to tell you something. This is something you can never get away from. God does not have the ability to stop loving you. And everywhere you go, you're going to bump into His love. Because He loves you with no ifs attached. Do you know this morning, you may be here not in a right relationship with God. You may not love God this morning. Can I tell you something that I know about God? He loves you as much as He loves anybody else. He loves you. As a matter of fact, He loves you like He loved His own Son. Romans 5:8 says God commended or activated or showed His love toward us in that while we were good church members who behaved and kept all the rules, Christ died for us. Nope, that's not what it says. It says that while we were in the very act of sinning, God loved us so much. Christ died for us. Love. Number 3, learn to listen uncondemningly. I went ahead and spelled that out for you because it's just part of the alliteration. Do it without condemning. Dads, how long has it been since you sat down and had a good talk with your children? You say, oh, last night I told them to clean the yard, I told them to pick up their toys, I told them... That's not what I'm talking about. How long has it been, Dad, since you sat down with your son or daughter and talked and then hushed and listened to them talk? Communication is the key to relationships. Communication is the key. Now, some of you think you're communicating well when you're talking with your fingers. And I'm not talking about your ability to communicate with people who can't hear. I'm talking about your so-called ability to text while you're in class or while you're driving. How many people, let me ask you seriously, I'm dead serious. How many believe there should be a law against texting while you drive?
There is a law.
Oh, I didn't know there was.
Yeah, there is.
I just said how many think there should be. Let me ask you this. How many of you have texted while you were driving? Be honest. Same people. Yep, should be a law. Whoop, yep, I did it. I just broke that law. Yeah. Isn't that right? I hate texting. I was texting all my boys on the way up here. Happy Father's Day. Learn to listen. That's not really communication, because there's more involved with communication than words. There also has to be, okay, I know you're going to try this on me. There has to be emotion, but I sent an emoji. That doesn't take the place of conversation. Looking in that person's eye, hearing their voice, sharing their heart. It's not quite the same. You guys are going to tell Paul, he preached against texting. Don't have this guy back. No, I'm not. There's times when it may be proper. But I'm telling you what, dads, it's not always proper. Sometimes you need to just sit down and talk. And we'll listen. Communication is twofold. It's lecturing, which means me speaking, but it's also listening. Most of us got the first one down. We know how to lecture. But few of us understand what it means to really listen. And yet we think we're communicating. I'm guilty of this. I do a lot of hearing because there's a lot of noise in my house. The worst, well, I almost got myself way in trouble there. I started to say the worst is my wife. I didn't say it. I said I started to say it. My wife will be talking, and I'll be right in the middle of something. And she'll talk, and then she'll stop talking. She did this last night. I'm sitting at the table, and I'm typing, and she's talking, and then she stopped and looked at me and needed an answer. I heard her, but I wasn't listening. I knew she was talking. I just didn't know there was going to be a question mark at some point in there. A quiz. I didn't know about the quiz. So when she stopped and looked at me, I said, "What do you think?" Tell me how you feel about it, as if she hadn't been doing that for the last 15 minutes. We're guilty of hearing our children, but not listening to them. You hear them in the car, you hear them in the house, you hear them out in the yard, but you don't listen. Kids will tell you what's on their mind if you'll ask. Can I tell you something? Kids will talk to you if you approach it in the right way. Now, I know some of us, through our relationships, have developed walls between us and our children that it's really hard to break those walls down. I know that. Start trying. Do it a nail at a time, but break down the wall. Start. One of the most powerful things that I've ever done as a father is to learn how to apologize to my children and mean it. Learn to say I'm sorry. Which leads me to my next point. Learn to live uncorruptedly. Again, just part of the alliteration, roll with it. Learn to live uncorruptedly. Colossians 3, and I'm not even going to turn there because I actually have spoken to you from Colossians 3 the last time I was here. But Colossians 3 is a manual of instruction for family relationships and how we're to live out the lordship of Jesus every day in our family lives. Let me just give you these things quickly. Number 1, verses 16, 17. Be controlled with your Christianity. Make it more than a game that you play or a chore that you attend to. If your children see you struggling to be a Christian, to act like a Christian, let me say it that way. There's a difference between being a Christian and acting like a Christian. Did you know that? Too many people are acting like Christians. Stop it. Be what you are. Be what the redemptive blood of Jesus has made you to be. You are a Christian. You are a part of His family. You do have available within you the presence of His Holy Spirit and the love and the joy and the peace that He brings. Okay? But when our children see us struggling to act like Christians without joy or love in it, they probably aren't going to want much of that kind of Christianity. Be authentic. Take time to talk to God every day. Welcome God into every circumstance in your life and in your family's life. Number 2, and this is tough, but it's still from Colossians 3. You can check me out later, verse 19. Be compassionate with your companion. Husbands, love your wives, and do not be bitter against them, or don't treat them in a bitter way. Our kids will know how much we love them by the way that we many times love their mothers. Don't pit your children against one another, mom and dad. Okay? Don't do it. Guard against that. The greatest security your children can know is love within the family until they come to know the love of God. Number 3, be consistent with your children. Verse 21, fathers, don't provoke your children to anger lest they become discouraged. Literally, lest they turn away from the lordship of Jesus. And number 4, be committed to your, anybody want to guess?
Family.
Okay, Christ. Good answer. Be committed to Christ. And when you're committed to Christ, you're committed to your family. When you're committed to Christ, you're committed to your church. When you're committed to Christ, you're committed to your job. You're committed. It's a different lifestyle altogether, ladies and gentlemen, that we embrace when we embrace Jesus as our Lord and Savior. Some of you thought I was going to put church in that way. If Jesus isn't the Lord of your calendar, He's not probably the Lord of your life. A lot of us don't want Jesus to be Lord on the weekends because we want our weekends. How many think Jesus should come to church when we come? He should come to receive our worship. You believe that? 3 people. Same 3 people. Y'all are sharp, man. You're on the ball. How many believe the Holy Spirit should be here when we worship? 3 more. I'm going to ask it again. Maybe we'll go for 6 this time. No, I'm just kidding. I know you do. If you expect Him to be here, shouldn't... Well, kind of goes without saying, doesn't it? Dad, shouldn't you and your family come? Be a part of what's going on? Show Jesus to your children. Your degree in fatherhood is not one that you hang in a frame on the wall, but it's one that you'll see in the eyes of your children. You're not going to get a diploma. I think that's because you're never going to graduate. There's always another lesson in parenting to learn. And I'm not here to overwhelm you this morning. I'm here to give you a few pointers and guidelines to help you in the right direction, but it's an ongoing journey. Proverbs 17:6 says, children's children are the crown of old men, and the glory of children is their father. Remember the first verse that I read? There's a generation that curses its father. But fathers who live right, they become the glory of their children. There's a light in those children's eyes that says, that's my